Young and the Restless revealed the cost of giving Matt a second chance. Friday's episode shifted the focus of Matt's redemption story away from himself and onto Sharon, Mariah, Victoria, and everyone else forced to confront his past behavior. The Young and the Restless shifted the focus from Matt's redemption to the emotional trauma of his victims. Friday's episode highlighted how his presence in Genoa City constituted a continued violation against Sharon, Mariah, and Victoria. While Matt remained in town as proof of change, the storyline argued that true redemption cannot occur when his victims are forced to bear the emotional cost of his reform. The narrative surrounding Matt's, Roger Howarth, return to Genoa City highlights a harsh reality often overlooked on soaps. The truth is that redemption doesn't take place in a vacuum. For weeks, the conversation has shifted on whether Matt deserved a second chance. Y&R shifted the focus away from his journey and onto the psychological toll inflicted upon Sharon Case, Mariah, Cameron Grimes, who shared how Roger Howarth keeps her on her toes, Victoria, Amia Heinley, and the countless others he left traumatized in his wake. By centering the narrative on the victims, the soap opera exposed the selfishness that underscores a villain's quest for grace. Matt operated under the delusion that staying in Genoa City was proof of his transformation. In his mind, facing his past, standing his ground, and attempting to do good show maturity and courage. He viewed his presence as an offering. He claims it's a testament to the fact that he is a changed man. However, for the people he traumatized, his proximity is not a sign of growth. Rather, it is a direct violation of his former victims. Sharon, Mariah, and Victoria do not see a reformed man when they look at Matt. They see their past trauma walking around the streets of their hometown. Every accidental run-in forces them to re-experience their worst moments. Matt's refusal to leave town demonstrated that his desire for closure took priority over his victims' right to emotional safety and peace. This storyline raises a deeper question. Can redemption ever be genuine when the victims are expected to absorb its emotional cost? True repentance requires prioritizing the injured party's well-being over the offender's comfort. Yet, Matt's continued presence demands that Sharon and her family manage their triggers, while he benefits from the narrative of being the changed man. By forcing his victims to confront his presence, the burden of his rehabilitation was placed onto their shoulders. They are left with the emotional labor of processing Matt's past crimes just so he can achieve personal absolution. Ultimately, Matt's second chance was bought with the emotional currency of the people he broke. Forgiveness cannot be demanded, and it cannot be fostered by forcing a past predator into a fragile present. Ultimately, Matt's second chance was bought with the emotional currency of the people he broke. Forgiveness cannot be demanded, and it cannot be fostered by forcing a past predator into a fragile present. For weeks, Matt had been asking for something he knew he didn't deserve, another chance. He had apologized. He had admitted his mistakes. He had promised that the man who once caused so much pain was finally gone. And for a while, it seemed as though everyone in Genoa City wanted to believe him. But the Young and the Restless has never been a place where forgiveness comes without consequences. Giving Matt a second chance may have seemed like the right thing to do, but the latest developments revealed just how expensive that decision could become. At first, Matt appeared to be genuinely changed. He wasn't making grand promises or demanding that everyone forget the past. Instead, he kept his distance, quietly trying to prove that he could be trusted again. That was what made his return so dangerous. People are often prepared for a villain who announces his intentions. They know how to protect themselves from someone who openly threatens them. Matt, however, understood that trust was more powerful than fear, and he knew exactly which people to approach. His first breakthrough came when someone close to him decided that refusing forgiveness was no longer an option. They remembered the good moments they had shared with Matt before everything fell apart. They remembered the person he had been before his mistakes changed everyone's lives. Most importantly, they wanted to believe people could change. That decision opened the door. Once Matt was welcomed back, even cautiously, his influence began to grow. Conversations that had once been uncomfortable suddenly became normal again. People stopped watching him quite so carefully. Invitations were extended, secrets were shared, and Matt noticed every bit of it. The problem wasn't necessarily that Matt had returned with another scheme. The problem was that nobody knew for certain. That uncertainty became the central tension surrounding his second chance. Was Matt truly trying to rebuild his life, or was he simply learning how to manipulate people more carefully? The answer appeared to become clearer when an old secret resurfaced. Someone discovered information Matt had desperately hoped would remain buried. It wasn't just an embarrassing reminder of his past. It was something capable of destroying the fragile trust he had spent weeks rebuilding. Instead of confessing, Matt hesitated. That single moment said more than any apology could. He had been given another chance. But when the truth threatened him, his first instinct was still to protect himself. The consequences were immediate. The person who had defended Matt began questioning everything. Had they been foolish to believe him? Had they ignored obvious warning signs simply because they wanted to see the best in him? Those questions cut deeper than any argument, because forgiveness can be offered freely. Matt soon discovered that receiving a second chance did not mean he had received a clean slate. Every mistake he made was being measured against his past. Every unexplained phone call looked suspicious. Every secret conversation created another reason for people to doubt him. And the more Matt tried to explain himself, the worse things seemed to become. That is where The Young and the Restless delivered its most powerful twist. Matt wasn't the only one paying the price. The person who fought hardest to give him another chance began losing the trust of everyone around them. Friends warned them. Family members questioned their judgment. Even people who once supported the decision began asking whether Matt was worth the risk. Suddenly, the second chance had become a battle between loyalty and common sense. Was forgiveness still noble if it endangered everyone else? That question transformed Matt's storyline from a simple redemption story into something far more complicated. Matt insisted that he was being judged for who he used to be rather than who he had become. He argued that nobody could change if they were permanently punished for their worst decisions. There was truth in his words, but there was also another truth. People who have been hurt are allowed to protect themselves. Matt wanted everyone to believe that his past belonged in the past. Unfortunately for him, the consequences of that past were still very much alive. Then came the moment that changed everything. A piece of evidence surfaced that appeared to connect Matt to the very situation he had insisted he knew nothing about. He denied it immediately. But this time, his denial wasn't enough. The people around him had learned an important lesson. Forgiveness did not require blind faith. Someone finally confronted Matt and demanded the truth. For the first time, Matt had nowhere to hide. If he confessed, he could lose everything. If he continued lying, he could destroy the last remaining pieces of trust he had earned. His silence became an answer. The fallout was brutal. The person who had offered Matt a second chance realized that they had been protecting someone who wasn't ready to accept responsibility. Their heartbreak wasn't simply about what Matt had done. It was about what they had done for him. They had defended him. They had trusted him. They had risked relationships because they believed he deserved another opportunity. And now they had to face the possibility that their compassion had been turned against them. That's the real cost of giving Matt a second chance. It isn't just about whether Matt can change. It's about whether the people around him can survive the process of finding out. For now, Matt remains caught between redemption and exposure. He can still choose honesty. He can still admit what he did and accept the consequences. But if he chooses another lie, the damage may become irreversible. And Genoa City has learned not to underestimate the power of a secret. The most intriguing part of Matt's storyline is that his redemption doesn't have to be fake to be dangerous. He may genuinely want to become a better person while still making terrible decisions. He may regret his past while continuing to fear the consequences of telling the truth. That makes him far more unpredictable. Because sometimes the most destructive characters aren't the ones who don't care. They're the ones who care deeply but aren't willing to lose everything to do the right thing. Matt was given a second chance. Now comes the real test. Will he finally prove that he deserved it? Or will his latest mistake reveal that some people don't change until they have nothing left to lose? On The Young and the Restless, forgiveness is never the end of the story. Sometimes it's where the trouble truly begins.